Activity, this day, the 5th of October 2023. Welcome. We're going to start with a Karakia, followed by a Waiata. I oha ki runga ki a Whanganui, I oha ki raro ki a Papa Tuanuku. Turikina ngā mea, kino ki te pai atia. Uhia mai o korowai aroha. Hei taonga mamato, ka puta ki te wai ao, ki te ao marama. Humie, huie, taiki. Thank you, Charlotte and Glenda.
Te awa tupua mai I te kahui maunga ki tangaro ka wakapiria mai kona piringa nina ko tama upoko tupoho pote ki e ko te awa ko te awa ko te awa tupua.
Well done, team. Okay, apologies. We've got one apology from Councillor Rob Vinson, who needs to leave at 11:45. Are there any other apologies? Mic on, please, Ross.
Apologies. Did you receive an apology from Judd Bailey? Yep.
Thank you. If I put my glasses on, I'd see it. Yep. So that is the recommendation before you, that we accept the apologies of Councillor Rob Vinson for leaving early, and Judd Bailey and grants leave of absence for this meeting. Would you like to move that? Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Glenda. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to any declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest in relation to items of business before us this morning? No. Thank you. We have a resolution to accept a late item, and that's the executive summary of the environmental plan.
It's additional information.
I think that's what I said. So that's additional information. Would someone like to move that? Thank you, Ross. I'll have a seconder, I'm sure. Thank you, Glenda. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Confirmation of the minutes of our meeting of the 8th of August. You've all had the opportunity to review those minutes. I'll put the recommendation that they be accepted or confirmed as a true and correct record of that, the decisions from that meeting. I'll move that. Thank you, Josh. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Okay, moving on to reports. Item 5.1, Community Views Survey Results and Action Plan. Thank you, Elise and Hannah. Cozy up to the table, thank you. Just before we get into this item, I just want to remind us that this is a strategy and policy committee. So what we're looking at in terms of the community views survey is with the lens of how might that impact strategy going forward. This is not an opportunity to to question every aspect of performance in relation to this item. Although that said, your questions are welcome, but I'm really keen on us focusing on the big strategic picture here, and in particular the later items in our agenda. So I'm going to be fairly to the point in terms of how much time we allow this item, and ask that you think of it with the strategic lens rather than the performance of what you do and don't like out of the Community Views survey results. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for the introduction. And kia ora koutou, I'm Elise, the Policy Manager, and supported by Hannah, Policy Advisor, and the Policy Team. So, as mentioned, the purpose of the report is to present the Community Views survey results and then the next steps for this work. As you're well aware, the Community Views survey is delivered on an annual basis, and it's an important tool in terms of understanding the use and satisfaction with various council services and facilities. The CVS is required in terms of its key input to measuring and reporting on our performance under the long-term plan, and through the Operations Committee you have just received the annual report that included many of the key results from the Community Views survey. Just in terms of the timing, a reminder that last year's results were actually tabled in February this year, so it feels really close, but that was because of the election cycle last year. We were pushed out to this year, so we're now getting things back on track, and October is the normal time, September, October is the normal time we would present the results. That's just to keep that in mind, as it does feel rather close, or at least for us it does. And as a result, we are tabling the action plan that was just tabled in February as a progress update, rather than creating a new plan altogether so soon. And there's a few other reasons for that, but primarily, as we know, there's already a significant amount of work underway through the long-term plan, and that includes the new business case process that you'll be well familiar with, the Vision for Whanganui work, which you'll shortly receive a presentation on, the organisational strategy refresh, which I understand David will be presenting to you at the end of the month, as well as setting up a project management office and several other business improvements underway, as well as the significant work through the long-term plan and keeping our core services running and ticking along. So you can imagine staff are feeling a little bit stretched at the moment in terms of everything happening, but we are rising up to this challenge, as we all are. So, Kate, thank you for that introduction in terms of just the context, so I won't cover that, but I will mention that the key tasks that we are working on are incorporating and considering these results as part of the Vision for Whanganui strategic work. So what are the results telling us, and what are some of those big standout areas that we need to look at through the long-term plan? And some of the big ones might be roading, parks and open spaces, and the provision of information, and making sure our services are more customer friendly. So that will all be looked at through levels of service in the long-term plan work. We will also, or we've actually already started reviewing the performance measures in the long-term plan, and that's an important piece of work as well, and it needs to line up with everything else that we've got on the go. And then alongside that, we'll be reviewing the structure of the Community Views survey, but we do note that any changes to it will actually not start until the year starting 1st of July 2024, so we have one more reporting cycle to go on the existing performance measures until those can change. So you'll have one more similar report. Oh, sorry. So in terms of context, look, I know some people might roll their eyes and say, COVID isn't still having an impact, but it is. It's had a long and a deep impact on all of us and all of our lives, and I don't think we can ignore that these results, particularly the last 2 years, have come in the context of that, coupled with the economic situation and rising rates, which have been well publicised and felt throughout the community and throughout the country. And, talking with other councils, results in terms of satisfaction with council are dipping across the country, and I think those reasons are probably well understood, and they're well felt by staff here and staff on the ground. So the CVS does present a difficult task for council. We're not shying away from it, but I think it's important to put that in context and just let that sit and move forward. In terms of understanding the survey itself, though, and how it's delivered, I think there's also a few important points to point out and to consider. So last year was the first year we moved away from doing phone surveys, and we did that because of cost. It doubled the cost of running the survey. It's a modest survey cost at the moment, around $12,000, and it's double that if we do a lot of phone interviews. So we cut that cost, and we also felt that the phone interviews only reached a very limited number of people and demographic. So in terms of the time and the effort and the energy that was put into phone surveys versus who we reached, we felt we were able to reach the demographic online, and that's proven to be true, that we still reach the over 65 demographic who are retired and at home and able to have time to actually answer a phone call. That said, the demographics still are largely skewed towards the older population, and our online efforts still haven't really changed that. But what has changed is the survey is now self-selected. So what it means is only those who see the survey and choose to engage with it will respond, as opposed to an intercept survey. So an intercept survey is where you approach directly and ask to respond. And what's interesting about that is intercept surveys we do, such as our smiley faces at the library and venues, will show quite a different trend from the survey results we get through the community views survey. So we see a much higher satisfaction from those who have been at the venue. They respond immediately about how their experience went, good or bad. They give us a clear answer. Whereas with the community views survey, people are, we're not even necessarily capturing those who have actually used the venues. We're certainly not capturing them in a timely way. So we just need to put these layers over it and consider the limitations of the data, as well as the CVS being one point in time, which is usually mid-year prior to the KPI results being required. So we do need to look at whether more touch points would be useful to get a better read on the community and whether things change throughout the year. And I note the margin of error is plus or minus 4.3%. So the small movements that you see, 1 or 2%, are fairly insignificant and inconsequential. We need to look at the larger changes, and we need to look at the trends over a longer time. It's always about zooming out, I think, to look at how things are going. So as well, considering how this survey is structured and delivered, we also need to look at what the questions are, and then how we measure and interpret those results. So in terms of how we are interpreting the results at Whanganui Council, I think we are making things a little bit tougher for ourselves than we need to. And I've discovered this through doing research and looking at how other councils are using and interpreting their community views surveys. And I believe there are improvements we can make to our performance measures and our questions to get more clarity on what we're asking and why, and getting more meaningful results. So a good example is, what we do is we take the total response for each question as 100%, and we include the don't knows in the 100%. And in some cases, the don't knows make up a fairly large chunk of the results. And then once you couple that with the neither nors, you might be looking at actually the maximum result you can get is 50% out of 100 as a starting point, not 100% out of 100. So when I've looked at a few other councils exclude the don't knows. So this is not about skewing the results to our favour at all, but about getting more clarity on what is the result actually telling us, because a don't know doesn't, in most questions, tell us anything useful at all. So other councils have done rankings from 0 to 10. Anything 0 to 4 is a poor result, 5 is considered genuinely neutral, and anything above 6 is considered good or doing well. So these are the kind of changes that we may make to the survey in future, just to get a little bit more clarity and, again, not to change the results, but, what actually are they telling, and how can we be more comparable with how the councils are doing it. And we are setting ourselves up, I think, to get an unrealistic result. If we've set ourselves up to get a result out, like we've set ourselves up to get 70% satisfaction out of 100, but the starting block isn't 100. So, and also as mentioned, are there other ways that we can get a better read on satisfaction with facilities and services, such as intercept surveys, particularly if we are now considering changes to levels of service through the long-term plan? I think we need to be really clear on what the community is telling us and how we can make a sustained improvement over time. So just to wrap up on some of the results, in terms of the positives, satisfaction with council staff, that is the percentage of people who think we are doing a very good or a good job, lifted 18% from the result last year. And there's been a marked increase in the use of our facilities, and this is certainly something we would hope and expect to see coming out of the COVID lockdown. Many of the other results you will see dips down, but as mentioned in the introduction, I think those need to be taken in context and they need to be considered through the long-term plan rather than analysing in detail now. It's about what we're doing with it. We'll publish the final results on our website after this meeting. Otherwise, I will take the report as read and happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before we take questions, I just want to foreshadow the additional recommendation there that I hope will just close off any concerns about the future surveys. So just talks about that the Chief Executive will update the performance measures and structure of the future community view surveys as part of the long-term plan process. So just foreshadowing that for you. Peter, you have a question.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. You said that you measure, well, what's important is the trends, yep? So if you change the criteria from 100% and disclude the don't knows, how will that affect the trend?
Yep, that's a really good point, and that's why we have stuck with the same process to date so that it's comparable. But what we will be doing is reviewing all performance measures and having a new set of questions, in which case we're resetting ourselves anyway. So we will effectively be starting afresh with this long-term plan. So I think it's a good time to look at the survey as well and make those changes in one set.
Thank you.
Elise, I've got a question about, and this is on the heels of a sausage sizzle and the post-it notes, and not that we looked at the surveys, but the post-it notes that members of our community are telling us about input into Vision Whanganui, or the long-term plan. There's quite a bank of information in the back of the survey about what our community is telling us about, largely, often in terms of levels of service. So could you just expand on that a little bit, particularly for the newer members? They're not new anymore, but they're a bit newer, about how that might feed through, for example, levels of service in parks and lawns and things like that, how that might feed through into the long-term plan going forward.
David may also want to talk about the process, but it's really about looking at all of the different inputs that we're getting, both from the Community Views survey as well as other data sets, and understanding what is it that our community, what's important to them and what do they value. Obviously, when you're if you are looking at increasing a level of service, such as mowing, that one always gets picked, but it's relatively easy to imagine and understand if we are to then increase mowing, because we're hearing from a number of different avenues that that's really important to people, that will come at a cost, and those need to be weighed up by council. So there's a series of workshops that we have coming up where we'll be looking at budgets and levels of service and going through everything carefully, and councillors will be needing to make those trade-offs ultimately. David, did you want to add anything? No?
Through you, Madam Chair, I won't add a lot other than just to, I suppose, make the point the value of these surveys is in the insights that they give you rather than the score itself. And as Elise has pointed out already, some of those trends around vegetation control, burn mowing, those kind of activities, alongside our roading activities, are showing a long-term trend downwards in terms of the community satisfaction. So we need to prompt the question, are we doing what we said we would do under our levels of service? And if the answer to that is yes, we are, and we're delivering the level of service we committed to, then the follow-up question is, have we got a level of service wrong and a mismatch between our community's expectations? Through the long-term planning budget process, that's the opportunity to reset those kind of things.
Good. It's a good, coherent answer. Thank you. Philippa?
Thank you. I know we've seen this, I may have missed it, and I know I've been looking at these for a few years, but I was kind of surprised in recreational activities that we don't seem to have any kind of measure or question actually around our pools. Yeah, because, and I guess we know going to the long-term plan, there's quite a few business cases, and you know, there's always, it's a key kind of activity. So is that new? Have we never done that? And are we looking at doing that forward?
Nicely turned into a question, Philippa.
Thank you, Chair.
Oh, I was actually going to mention this one, but I thought my spiel was too long. So I can't say whether or not we've done it historically. We do have other measures through the annual report for measuring satisfaction around pools, but what we have been talking about is, as part of the survey refresh, we need to include the pools in this alongside all the other venues. So they will be included in future. Yep.
Thank you. And
Fantastic.
just a second question, I think it's like the services provided by council. If I'm reading it right, a lot of these, and there's probably, sorry, I have read it all through, but I haven't marked stuff, but looking at page 49, and you know, town centre, public art, litter control, animal control, on-site parking, opportunities to dispose of waste and recycling. If I'm basically reading it right, everything is progressing down, so worse. Is that how our
Not everything. Staff
Most things?
satisfaction survey up 18%.
part of the
But go on, sorry.
yeah,
I
just in
shouldn't have
that whole
interrupted.
area, am I reading that correct, and do we have any kind of further insight over that? You'd nearly think, I guess, post-COVID, some things will be tracking up more, and that.
Your interpretation is right. That is tracking down over time on almost all of those trends, and I think that goes to my introductory context, that general satisfaction with council facilities and services, not in Whanganui, across the country, has been tracking down. So I won't provide any further discussion on that unless David wants to provide anything. But
I think the only comment I would make, and it also speaks to your last question, is the community view survey is not the only data set we have. We do survey at the point of use of our surveys, of our services and facilities. So one of the improvements we've made since the Splash Centre came back in-house is put those surveys at the reception desk, so as people are actually coming out of the swimming pool, they can rate their experience whilst it's fresh in their mind and very current. We are noticing that there's a bit of a mismatch in the data that we collect from those point of view surveys versus this more point in time, one hit survey of the community views, and it's part of what we'll be looking at under the additional resolution that's been drafted, is what's the most appropriate way to gain those insights that are accurate, that we can then use to inform how we improve our service delivery and keep our community satisfied. And if the point of view surveys are viewed as being more reliable, more accurate, offering better insights, then we may start to rely on those more in the future and remove some of these questions from the CVS survey.
Good. Thank you very much. I'm going to put the recommendations that the Strategy and Policy Committee receives the Community View Survey 2023 and requests the Chief Executive continues to develop and implement the action plan, and that the Chief Executive review and update the performance measures and the structure of the future community view surveys as part of the long-term plan 2024 to 2034. I think Peter's wanting to move that, and I saw somebody move a hand over here. Ross, thank you. Moved and seconded. Does anybody want to make any comments? No? Well, I'll just thank the Elise and Hannah for their report, and thank you too for taking a very strategic view and looking forward in terms of this survey. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye? Against? Carried. Thank you. Right, we'll move on to item 5.2, the long-term plan 24 to 34, environmental scan. Elise and Tamsin, welcome. I almost feel like we should have a banner that says this environmental scan should be compulsory reading for everybody. The floor is yours.
Sorry, Morena koutou. I'm Tamsin. I'm on the policy team with Elise.
You might need to move the mic a bit closer to you, Tamsin.
A lot closer.
Thanks.
Is this
Thanks.
all
Thank you, Helen.
Take your moment.
All right. So there are two key documents being presented today: the full environment scan document, and then the executive summary version, which was tabled as additional information. As noted in the report in front of you, the environment scan isn't a legislative requirement, but it is considered good practice so that, well, it can help ensure that you're keeping up to date with changes in the district and basically function as a reference document as you move through the planning and decision-making process. A couple of things to be aware of regarding the data. The timing was unfortunate regarding the Census 2023 results. These won't be released until next year, unfortunately. The scan relies quite heavily on Infometrics data, and Infometrics have noted that some of their figures do get revised as far back as 2021, so there's possibly a couple of minor revisions around those to come. And there's also, as I'm sure you're all well aware and sick of hearing, a lot of uncertainty surrounding all the central government reforms which are covered in the scan. So with all this in mind, it will be necessary to update the scan in 2024. If there are any areas of interest that you would like to see covered in the future, or anything you think was missed, please let us know. We'll welcome that feedback. We will still be doing some further edits and proofreading of the scan over the next few weeks. We'll then send out a finalised version to councillors and to other agencies and organisations that it may be of use to. A quick note before welcoming questions. The environment scan does cover 59 different topics. It's been a collaborative effort with everyone across council, a lot of contributions. We're certainly not experts in all 59 different topics. Well, I'm not, I can't speak for Elise, but if there are really specific questions, we may have to get back to you in some cases, but otherwise, happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Elise, did you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I think you mentioned, Kate, everyone should read it, and we're going to publish this and we're going to send it to all of the agencies working in Whanganui, all the organisations, businesses. We think it's a really good reference tool for people when they're looking at making decisions or policy decisions, and I think council has an important role in terms of providing that information and those insights. I believe this is the first time, well, certainly the first time I'm aware of, that we have published it in this format, in a really digestible format. We've done the summary, and I think that's important to note, and thanks to Tamsin for taking the lead on that and making that happen. Unfortunately, we will need to do an update in 2024, but again, we hope that will serve a useful purpose for other organisations and agencies in Whanganui, that they can see how things have changed in the last census. So that'll be an interesting update to bring next year as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Michael?
With the jobs, are they calculated by the company register's location or the number of jobs that are held from a PAYE IRD database point of view?
Sorry, unfortunately I'll have to ask Informatrix that question and
that's
then get
fine.
back to you, but it's a good question. Thank you.
Yeah, so Chair, if it's an action, I'd like to know, because it means, are we helping provide more jobs locally, or is it national people bringing them here? Thank you.
It is certainly people located here because
No, apologies, to clarify. They're located here, yes, but are there jobs? Since decentralisation, it's become kind of confusing. Is your job here, or is your job in Auckland, but you're located here?
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, we would have to ask Informatrix there.
Yeah,
Thank
good question. Thank you.
Thank you. Helen?
Thank you. I'm just really interested in the name. Why do we call it an environment scan?
I think this is a national trend. It's what Taitoara advises you to call it, but if you think there's a better title, we're certainly open to it.
Yes, it's all part of the long-term plan process. So all councils are asked to do an environmental scan, and that's the name that's used. So it's the common language, but I think it's more appropriately a reference document or a snapshot of the district. We could come up with a better name if you think that would be helpful to promote it.
Well, I do. I think it's jargon within the internal government thing, and I think if I saw this on a desk, I think this is about the environment. So I think, yeah, even a byline that explained what it was on the front would be really helpful, just to encourage people to open it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, especially if we're going to share it across other agencies
Yeah,
and
it's the sharing
organisations.
part.
Yeah.
Um, And look, I'm assuming, you know, the statistics are correct because they've come, well, in terms of as good as they know, you know, Informatrix, etc. I just noticed, you know, the statistics for our ethnic diversity is 26.2%. And I do hear lots of different numbers bandied around in, you know, what our Māori population is. And so I just find that really interesting. But this would be as good as information we can get based on we haven't got the new census data. That would be my understanding.
Yeah, that is 2018 census data from Stats New Zealand, verified, published on their website. The reason why the numbers don't add up to 100 is you can tick more than one ethnicity.
Yeah.
And so we will get an update on that next year as to if and how
Yeah.
that has changed.
Yeah, no, that's super. Thank you very much.
Charlotte?
Thank you, Chair. Just in regards to tertiary education, it says 55.6% of our population enrolling in tertiary education, compared with 78.8% for New Zealand. I was just wondering, does what do we call it? Like education on the job. Is that included in this, or is it purely just sort of UCOL and the likes that come into that statistic?
Sorry, give us a moment. We just want to check which figure we're looking at, so we're looking at the same one.
It's about page 5.
Do you want to talk about that? On page of the full report. 'cause
Oh,
she's
sorry, are you looking at the full report or the executive
I'm looking
summary?
at the executive summary.
okay.
Sorry.
Right. So in the full report on page, what page is that?
Page 48.
Page 48.
The total enrolments in tertiary education providers like Te Pukenga UCO are separated out from participation in industry training. So those two things are separate and both are included in the full
Right,
document,
okay,
just
awesome.
not the exec summary.
Thank you.
I've got a question about the ethnicity of our younger population looking forward. It comes as no surprise to me that we're talking about a 26% Maori population in Whanganui. That's long been established in health sector statistics. Another learning that I've had, and maybe this is, well, I don't think it's outdated, but typically Māori families tend to have more children, and so I would have expected to see the younger age, you know, more Māori tamariki in looking forward, increasing at a greater rate than what this report tells us. So I was just wondering if you could delve into that information a little bit, just so we can understand better how that's been built going forward, you know. Do you want to say?
That's a really good and interesting question. We don't actually have any data from census or infometrics at the moment that breaks down age composition and ethnicity together. So it's a little bit hard to comment on that at the moment, but we can certainly, if that's
Could
something
you
you
have a
think
little
should be
look at
important.
it?
Yeah,
What I'd really
absolutely.
appreciate is, you know, as an outcome of this meeting, you've had a few questions.
Yeah,
If you could just give us a bit of feedback about
yeah, absolutely.
about the questions that we've asked.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, if you pulled up some health data, and kind of make that comparison, because I know in the DHB days, and I would imagine it still exists, that they're all over that sort of data, because it's really important in terms of delivery of health services.
Yeah, absolutely. We really appreciate all the valuable feedback and questions, and because we do still need to go through some editing and proofreading processes anyway, we can incorporate new information and then send it back out. That's not a problem.
Awesome. All right, thank you. That's looks like we've come to the end of the questions. I'm going to put the recommendation that, sorry, what are you? Sorry, Jen. That the committee receive the report long-term plan 2024 to 34 environmental scan. Would someone, thank you, Charlie. Charlie's going to move that. Would someone else like to second it? Thank you, Jenny. Any discussion? Michael.
I would just like to thank the team because, you know, I've only just got this. This is so much fun to read, so thank you. There is a few discrepancies that are coming across. I think they'll be fixed by the census data, but some things I want to celebrate as a wider community. A population of 49,000. We know it's more like 52 already by population and housing, and we've got educational stats that are coming through. So it looks like about 52,000. The census data will rectify that. But one of the things I really enjoy about Whanganui is our population of Māori at 26.2%. I expect it to rise because Whanganui is so different to a lot of other smaller cities. Is in we actually embrace our whakapapa. If you go for a coffee, you'll find someone talking about their great-granddad who was Māori. You know, or you talk to my wife, who's now talking about their relatives who are Māori, and have now got on the Māori register, and have now done this. It's kind of cool as a city, and I really want to embrace that unified, we are one. It's kind of nice. I like it. So thank you for that. I expect to see this rising. Household income. I really want to point out that in Whanganui, $95,000 is lower than the average, but our individual income for full-time employment was around 78,000 last time I looked, versus Auckland at 92,000, if I remember correctly. We don't have a massive problem with low wages for full-time employment. We have a concern that we only have one income earner per family. Now, is that a concern? It's up to people to decide that, because lifestyle, we have an amazing lifestyle here. So it's kind of cool. And the only other thing I'd point out is the NEETs. We've spoke about that in this council before. 15% is way too high. And what can this council do to help that? We've already got things in motion. I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm only on page 4, so thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Helen, and then Andrew.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it's quite a lot to digest, and I this will be a really great tool, and we probably need to keep it on our right hand as we're working through the long-term plan and our vision. There's some pretty sobering statistics in here, and the biggest risk is that we just keep on doing the same things. Not that what we're doing is bad, but could we make a major difference, for example, in our deprivation factor by what we do in the long-term plan and the vision? And I think that's going to be, that will be a hard task for us to do. But yeah, I'll be keeping this very close, and it's a great piece of work, very useful. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. Andrew.
Yeah, thank you to the team for both the community views survey. There's this environmental scan, which is a strategic word, a strategy term that's been used for a long time. So, but it is a bit confusing. I get Helen's point. But look, I think in summary, we've just come from a strategic forum with business leaders, and I suggested that Whanganui, we should have an aspiration for being the best place to live on earth. Now that's probably a little bit mad, but why not? And ultimately, what is all this data for? We've got this community views survey, we've got environmental scan, we've got census information coming soon, which are going to give us data-informed decision-making ability. We've got a potential change of government. We've got an LTP process. We're refreshing the vision and strategy, Leading Edge 2.0, wellbeing strategy. We're rethinking across New Zealand and a potential change to the structure and approach to how local government work. So there's a heck of a lot of things on to help us shape what Whanganui could look like in 20. This environmental scan does show that there are barriers and obstacles and some issues to fix, but that's life. But there are also massive opportunities as well ahead of us. And I think, we need to look at both of those, and that's hopefully what this will help us with. I talk about a runway. We've got a runway from now to 1 July next year to develop something that I think could be using the information we've got to be to paint a picture to what the best place on earth to live is, and I see Whanganui as being that place. We're all a bit biased, aren't we? But that's okay. But we need to be change savvy as well. We need to be good at change, because talking it up and having the information is one thing, but we need to be able to deliver on that as well. And we can't do it all ourselves, so we need to collaborate really well across our community. And so I'm really happy with all this information we're gathering, both analytical data, quantitative and qualitative data, talking to and listening to our community, and to ultimately, what this is all for, is to develop a plan for our district to have the most livable place on earth. Kia ora.
Josh.
Thank you, and thank you, Tamsin and Elise, for the presentation. I agree with all the comments that have been stated about how valuable this information is for us as we move through the vision for Whanganui and also into the long-term plan. Also picking up on Councillor Helen's comments around some of the statistics being quite sobering, and I totally agree with that. I'm on page 116 at the moment, looking at life expectancy and the suicide rate for Whanganui, which life expectancy has us ranked at 54th of 66 territorial authorities. In terms of the suicide rate, we have a ranking of 2 per 10,000 residents and rank 56th out of 66 territorial authorities across the country. And I reflect on that and I link it back into the previous item around community views and that sense of belonging, noting in that report that we saw a trend amongst young people in particular, not having a sense of belonging or well-being, or at least the percentage rate was higher than perhaps other age groups. And also noting, the impact of COVID-19 and the fact that, through 2 years of people being separated from their families or, not being able to go to work or whatever, that there has been that sense of loneliness and, I guess, separation from community. And so I'd really like to hope that using this information, we can have a really concerted effort in our strategy to focus on cohesion and belonging and community in our next long-term plan, because that to me is, the fundamental of what makes a healthy, thriving, happy community. And I think we should really take note of those statistics and their impact. Thank you.
Awesome. Some good kōrero, and thank you for this excellent report. You know, it's a very coherent environmental scan, and I thank you for it. I love the fact that you've included the links to the update on Transmission Gully. I mean, you know, those sorts of things make it a really valuable one-stop shop in terms of what does our community look like right now, and a great platform for moving forward. So thank you very much. We've got a recommendation up there. All those in favour, please say aye. Oh, sorry, did you have... Charlie, did I hear you go, I want to speak? No. Oh, sorry. Just clearing your throat, maybe. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. We'll move on to item 5.3. Progress report. We're getting a verbal update on the Vision for Whanganui work programme. Fancy seeing you here again.
Just here to support.
Nice. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou. I'm Robin Vickery, helping to lead the Vision for Whanganui work in the long-term plan process. So today I'm here to provide you with a top-level progress update for both of those projects ongoing. We're well and truly in the thick of this now, so I just wanted to remind you that these updates will remain very top level. I know that Kate spoke to that earlier, but all those operational details will continue to feed through the workshops that are happening as we move through. So you would have seen this slide on multiple occasions now, but yeah, up on the screen are all of the puzzle pieces that make up the full long-term plan process. And work is continuing to progress in each of these streams. Now, I'm not going to speak directly to each one of these today, but I will kind of start off with some of the ones that are highlighted on the screen. The environmental scan Tamsin's obviously gone to depth with you just before, but I really just wanted to echo the amount of time and energy that went into that scan. So thank you both Tamsin, Elise, Claire, and all of the staff that contributed to this. It's a really momentous piece of work. So. The business case process, so some final deadlines occurred last week as submissions for both the community initiatives and the internal PO point of entry business cases are closed. The team involved will be coming to the Aspirations and Projects Committee on the 11th of October. So as a reminder, you can access all of the business cases online, so I definitely encourage you to keep yourselves up to date there, and kudos again to those who are involved in this work. There's a big stream of work happening, and again a huge effort. For finance, work is well underway here, so staff have been conducting really lengthy meetings with managers across the council to establish our budgets for the next 10 years. So soon some of these streams are going to start merging, and Elise mentioned earlier about the workshops that are upcoming. You're going to start having those kind of trade-off conversations when you start talking about levels of service, etc. So those are to come, and yeah, that'll be around that kind of November time, so not too far away. For review of policies, we received direction from you back in the 24th of August workshop, and that's allowed the team to really press ahead with this review. The liability management policy and investment policy went through the risk and assurance committee recently, but other than that, all of them are pressing ahead. For final output, so there's some early thought really going into the design and the content here, and a subgroup involved are really starting to firm up the dates against this based on the deadlines that we know with the audit and the final deadline of adoption. We're going to start locking in those consultation dates and deliberations, hearings, etc. So once they're finalised, they'll be on your calendars. And then for the other kind of areas I haven't spoken to, there's not much to report, but just be assured that work is happening for those. So specifically speaking to a few of them, the Vision for Whanganui work, a lot of this work is currently sitting in that engagement space, which I'm sure most of you are aware. I did mention that on I wanted to mention that on the 6th of September, we brought together the elected members with the iwi hapu group who were have formed up the steering group for this work, and it was a great workshop. We had a bit of an introduction, a roundtable mihi, and just updating you on the progress that's happening here. So I did kind of put up there's a few pictures here just to give you a bit of a flavour of the day, which was great. And also worth noting that a regular newsletter is now going out to iwi hapu. For those who are not necessarily around the table, it means that everyone can come on the journey with us as well. So that's the main updates there. There's a few more. So engagement. So as I mentioned, most of engagement is focused on that vision for Whanganui work. Up on the screen, I've provided you with a bit of summary of what we've done so far. So we've had that kind of annual plan pre-engagement, community lead meetings, launched the Vision for Whanganui webpage, launched the wellbeing survey and the Vision for Whanganui engagement program. So the survey was launched on the 18th of September, and that's going to run right through till the 15th of October. So we've still got 10 days left to gather information. And the purpose of this survey is to really obtain feedback from the wider community to help us in developing that vision for Whanganui. As of this morning, we have 492 responses, so that changed overnight. But we're really pushing this survey out far and wide, both digitally and in person at those events as well. So thank you to everyone in the community that's taken part so far. All the responses are really, really valuable for us and helping to kind of form that new vision. And for those that are yet to take part, the link is up on the screen. So I definitely encourage you to take the time to take part. So upon launching that website, we've been out and about in the community. Tongue twister. And this engagement program is a month long. So all of those that you can see up on the screen there, all those in green, we have already occurred. That sausage sizzle should also be green. And the ones in yellow, beyond the sausage sizzle, are yet to occur. So we've got another week left. We're having some really positive interactions in the community. Some of you have been to those, and I'm sure you've enjoyed those as well. And I'd like to extend a thank you to those that have been involved, and extend a thank you to the community who have come to see us. It's been really great. So beyond the closure of the survey, essentially the steering group are going to be moving on to reviewing that feedback. So the next time we speak to you is probably going to be a bit of a debrief on what has come in through the survey results. So I just wanted to pop up some images on the screen for each of the ones that have happened so far. So the Kaumātua Olympics, we've got the Davis Library Grandparents' Day, Trafalgar Square, Gonville Library, article, we had a World Cafe, which was really cool. And then the Splash Centre sausage sizzle that happened this week. So for those who are wanting to see us, this is where you can find us over the next week or so. So what's next? As if it hasn't been busy enough, we are going to get a bit busier. So I mentioned before that those streams of work are really going to start merging now. So as the picture starts to become clearer through your direction, we're going to start drafting up the supporting documents for the long-term plan, the vision for Whanganui, strategy, however that looks, is also going to be drafted. So just up on the screen there, we've got a workshop on the 10th of October, so that's next week, and that's to talk through some asset management information. The survey ends, so we'll start reviewing the feedback there. November workshops continue, that's where the merging really starts to begin. The survey results will be released, and drafting that framework for the wellbeing. December workshops continue, and then we're going to start drafting the LTP and the supporting documents. And then January is when we kind of really start to tie things up and finalise things, as we've got audit on the 19th of February. So we've got some work ahead, but all in hand. I'm happy to take any questions.
Awesome. Did I hear you say we've got some work ahead, but all in hand?
Yeah.
Nice. Love it. Andrew.
All right. Yeah, all in hand despite being sick and managing kids and things like that. I get it. Yeah. So the question just on this particular slide, which I had before it came up, is ensuring that we're feeding back to the community in general, but also specific people and groups that have given results, I think is really important. So the third bullet point on October there, review of feedback, actually was it survey results really, sorry, in November, second bullet point there. Is that what that is? Survey results, but also this is kind of what you said, community?
Yeah, so we've already started discussions on how that will potentially look with the community in mind as well. So making sure it's kind of digestible feedback, which is fit for purpose for us, but also for people to see what was said on the wider scale as well.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, it's more of a comment, but it's more making sure that we're going back to people to say, is this what you said, and making sure they felt like they were heard, and that's the outcome. If that's what happens, that's great.
Yeah, so there'll be an element of the consultation process as well, where we will be asking if we got it right, I suppose. But we have been speaking with community leads directly as well, so we've been kind of looping back as we move through to make sure that we're hearing them correctly, as you say, yeah.
Okay, so second question is, what actually happens in my experience of doing this kind of thing is that people give their initial perspective, they have time to reflect or look at other information, and then actually have another surge of new ideas fed from what they've seen or what they've been reflecting on. So is there an opportunity post-October to input further information into this, or is it closed off?
I guess the answer is yes and no. So the survey, we're trying to really encourage people to do the survey now. However, as per the timeline, we will be drafting the wellbeing framework and having that ready in November so that it's ready to inform the long-term plan. And then there'll be some socialising with, as Robin said, the key groups and some of the key leads. So between November and January, February, just to make sure that what we heard is right. But we won't be putting it out for full public consultation until the consultation in March. Otherwise, I think we'd probably overdoing it, to be honest. We sort of hear that people feel sometimes there's a bit of consultation fatigue, and while it's really important that we loop back, I don't think we want to loop back too many times. So yes, there is a process to ensure that we've reported back, and there is an opportunity for the public to come back through the consultation, but we won't be putting the document out again for full consultation until the consultation period. We do also have a website up, and people can email us at any time as well, and that feedback can go into the mix of things. So hopefully that satisfies.
Yeah, no, that's great.
I'm going to hop in there too, and a consultation process is a weighty thing. It's not done lightly. There's a whole formal process that sits around that consultation, the steps in that consultation. So I'm breaking my own rules about question time, but I'm very much in support of Elisa's suggestion that we want to be careful not to invite consultation fatigue.
Yeah, no, I get that. I had misunderstood the process, and I'm new to this, and probably a few of us are. But that consultation process in March, April.
Yeah, it'll be a full month again
Right.
in March, April. Dates haven't been exactly set, but we normally do it sort of late March and the full month of April. So that's when we'll be putting back the draft strategy and asking the community, did we get it right? And then you've got that opportunity for changes up to 30 June. So there is still a wide opportunity for feedback. And as mentioned, we'll be going back to some of the key stakeholders who have been involved and doing a bit of peer review and testing between November and February as well. But I don't think another full consultation is warranted, nor would be welcome from the community.
Yeah, sorry, no, that's great. You've answered my question, so yeah,
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Helen?
I'm trying to remember what my question was now. In the jigsaw puzzle, you had the business cases, you mentioned those, and they're being developed. I think you mentioned that we could see those and we could check. Where do we find those?
They're all on the council's website. I don't have the URL right in front of me, but we'll get it sent around straight
Yeah.
away after this meeting. I don't know if anyone here knows it off the top of their heads. Lance?
It's fine. After the meeting's fine.
No, that's fine. It's just
No,
quite
they are
hard
all
to find.
available, and as they get assessed, they get put up there. So they're not all up there, but I think about 80% up there.
Okay.
Yep.
So, because I looked on the community initiatives page, which is where you're actually going to submit one, and I would have thought there would have been a link there to already the ones that had been submitted and developed.
Yep.
You know, so to me that's a connection. Perhaps that should be made.
Yep, we can pass that feedback on, but it is on a different page than
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
All right, thank you. No further questions. We'll put a recommendation that the Strategy and Policy Committee receive the progress report on the long-term plan 24 to 34 and the vision for Whanganui work programs. Charlotte would like to move that recommendation and Peter will second it. She did raise her hand. It was all right. I wasn't putting her on the spot. Josh, would you like to make a comment in relation to that recommendation?
Yeah, just very briefly, I just want to acknowledge the policy team and the rest of the team involved with the engagement sessions, because they've been really good so far. And I mean, I've attended only a few of them so far, but the World Cafe in particular, you know, the breadth of the feedback that came through in that session, you know, the confidence and the ability for a diverse collection of people to express their viewpoints was great. And I think the numbers of people that have contributed so far is a testament to the engagement program that's been put together. So well done.
Helen?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you to the team too. And it's, some of those public engagement sessions are quite awkward in a way. I was at Trafalgar Square and I did feel very awkward standing in the middle of the thoroughfare, and you didn't want to sort of wave people down and say, hey, come here and talk about our survey, you know. And we did get a few people, well, some people during the time that I was there come up to engage, but it did feel awkward, as opposed to the cafe where, and that was at Article Cafe, which has got its own clientele who are very comfortable there, and were attracted to that location, I think, for this specific purpose, and worked really well. And I think we ended up getting a different cross-section of the community than we might otherwise get. And so I talked to staff, our staff, a little bit about, you know, maybe going into groups that meet, you know, whether it would be a card group that meets, you know, how you get those, they play, I don't know, what are those big card groups that get together, or Rotary, you know, they get together on a weekly basis, so actually going into one of their meetings. So we're going to where people are normally meeting anyway, and you then pick the different clubs, because you'll be getting different demographics, you'll be getting a different cross-range of people. It all takes time and energy, and I think the staff are doing a great job, but it was a very interesting experience. Thank you.
Very good. Just add my thanks to the great work that's happening, you know, down at the Sausage Sizzle on Tuesday. I think just the staff mingling, I mean, we were too, but we're more awkward than staff, I think. You know, and the kids coming up and saying, well, what do we think's important? And they had their post-it notes, you know. It's really neat. So thank you for that. Good work. All those in favour of the recommendation up there that we receive the report, please say aye. Anybody dare to be against it? No, motion carried. Thank you. Right, on to item 5.4, legislation and consultation update. Another really important function, I think, that council's getting involved in, or has been involved in. It's not new. Thank you, Elise.
I feel like saying sorry, you've got me again. I know, our team does a lot. I was chatting with, for those of you who remember, Sandy Lee in Tauranga, and she was saying, "Oh, we've got 10 teams that do the same work as your team now," and going, "Oh, if only." But no, we do a lot with we do a lot with not a lot of funding, and we do the best we can, but we do really appreciate all that feedback, and I would agree with the sentiments that have been shared that we need to go to people and we need to go to where people feel comfortable. So we'll take that feedback on board. So just to change tune, this is the legislation and consultation update. So at the last strategy and policy meeting, the Mayor asked if we could extend the consultation update to include an update on legislation as well. So we've revised the report to include updates on legislation, consultations, reviews, inquiries and other policy decisions made by central government, which could impact on council and or the wider district. In terms of the legislation update, you'll be well aware that the government passed a number of bills under urgency prior to Parliament rising in August. So these are all listed in the report, and I won't read them all out, but I did want to note in terms of one key piece of legislation, the sale and supply of alcohol amendment bill passed. We actually didn't expect this to pass prior to Parliament rising, which was why we were not ready to review the local alcohol policy, but now that this has passed, we have begun work on the local alcohol policy with a view to conclude that by mid-2025. So I probably won't speak more to the legislation update as it's in there. And in terms of upcoming consultations, I'd like to highlight a few. So Parliament has launched an inquiry into climate adaptation, and the committee, you'll see the list of topics they're particularly interested in, but in particular the current approach to community-led retreat and adaptation funding and lessons learned from severe weather events and natural disasters. So we're just looking at this and whether or not we will submit. We are considering a regional submission as this is an inquiry rather than a policy position statement, but we will let you know about that. The next bill that we're looking at submitting on is the Civil Defence and Emergency Management Bill, which replaces the current Civil Defence Emergency Management Act. And we've already drafted this submission, and it will be in your inboxes very shortly for comment. It's not due till the 3rd of November, so we've got about a month to get that done. So we will be dealing with that one via email, as we don't think it warrants a workshop. And then there are two other consultations on the proposed national policy statement for natural hazard decision making and the transitional national planning framework. And Justin is going to take a lead and has arranged a workshop with you all to discuss these two together to be efficient with time. So that's it really. Otherwise I'm happy to take it as read and take any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elise. Josh, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. It's just on the sale and supply of alcohol amendment. So now that that piece of legislation has been passed, can you remind us what the full review of the LAP will look like?
I'll ask Hannah to talk to that.
So, in terms of process for the LAP review, part of the reason why we're essentially starting now with an aim to finish by 2025 is because it will still be a fairly extended process. We're in the early stages of essentially information gathering, so we need a strong evidential foundation as the basis for anything that we do in that space. So we'll be collecting a lot of information, basically to look at, get a picture of what alcohol is like in the community, where are the danger spots, where is there a lot of it, where is there not a lot of it, what could we possibly do to be managing alcohol harm. From that point we will probably begin early drafts and also start holding workshops so that we can get a sense from you all and also from the executive leadership team about what the end product should look like, what the priorities are, what things we want to move forward with, and then we will follow through with consultation because thanks to the ruling of the Supreme Court, community preference is also an accepted basis for setting alcohol controls over the district. which will then work forward into a full review that will be implemented. Yeah, so stakeholder involvement is part of the research stuff, but yeah, that will be involved throughout as well.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
No problem.
Helen?
Thank you. So I see that we're going to get a workshop, which is great, on the proposed national policy statement for national hazard decision making. That's correct, I believe. The inquiry into climate adaptation, you're still looking at that and deciding whether or not what will be the next steps.
Correct. If there was keenness from council, we can definitely prepare a council submission, but this is an inquiry, so it's providing information to Parliament as opposed to, it's not a policy decision, so they haven't put out a policy document and said, do you agree, yes or no? They're asking for us to provide them with information, so we could deal with that either at an officer level or a regional level, because they're not asking for a position statement from us.
Yes.
They're asking for us to provide this information, is my understanding. There is also a supporting paper put out for the Ministry for the Environment that I think we should look at too. So it's really, if this is something that the committee, the council would like to submit on, then we can prioritise it. Otherwise, we will ensure that we submit at the officer level.
I think there's quite a lot of interest, certainly in our community, around climate adaptation, and in terms of, well, what would that mean for them? What's the impact? When is that impact? As much as that can be determined, but also in the cost attribution, who's going to pay? And it's quite topical, you know, with Auckland and Hawke's Bay, and the government has come up with a scheme, or will pay so much, and the council has to pay a balance, and then you've got the insurance companies. And we're not, you know, any day it could be us. And I personally want to know, I'm trying to make, I think our community would be very interested in this discussion on this one, and I think we have to get a look, but I would like to know more about it and have a bit of a more in-depth discussion about it. Yeah. Sorry, that turned into a statement because it's a difficult one, but
So let's just tease that out a little bit.
Yeah.
My question of this would be, are we in the best position to be providing information, or would Horizons, I mean, given who's got the best information, would we not be best to partner with Horizons? Because I agree with Helen in that, I mean, there's a bit of a dilemma here, because we don't have a lot of resource and we've got a lot of priorities. I'm just wondering, like you say, at this stage, whether gathering information, and given that we haven't had a recent event like some other areas, are we the best people to be devoting our limited resource to providing information? And what's the answer to that one? And the next one is, if we were to get involved in this, would we be better to do it with Horizons?
So we have already spoken to Horizons, and that's why we felt that maybe a regional submission would be an appropriate and efficient way of doing it. They are putting in a comprehensive submission, and they've done the Manawatu Whanganui regional risk assessment. But if there is keenness to do it as a Whanganui District Council specific submission, then we're more than happy to look at that as well. But I think we would have to bring in regional data anyway, as we don't have the localised data. I do want to note as well, there's also a climate change adaptation bill being progressed by this government, so that will talk to cost attribution. So there's a lot of different moving bits. It is a little confusing, But that climate change adaptation bill, we absolutely will submit on that when that comes out. And this is precursor work, I believe, leading into it. So it's just when's the most appropriate stage to be submitting, and exactly as you say, in what form and with whom.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to take it offline, look at it, and come back with a proposal to submit as a council if there's a willingness to do that.
What are we thinking?
So, from, if you don't mind, I've got an increasing concern about the impact of any natural hazard and what it's going to impact on Whanganui. We know we've got a coast, we know we've got a major river, and we are in a medium risk earthquake zone. So my concern is that we do not actually have a plan for what we are going to do if we're going to relocate people. Okay, it's been quietly talked about, you know, horizons along the river, might have to move these homes. But actually we do not have a plan. We do not have a piece of land where we could say to people, right, if you get red stickered tomorrow and your house can no longer be rebuilt on that site or whatever, then this is a bit of land that you can go to. We can do a landfall, land swap or whatever, or what that even plan might look like. We have nothing.
Oh.
And it's the same with an earthquake. If an earthquake devastated the CBD, we need a plan for where our businesses are going to go as a long-term, short-term, temporary measure for them to trade. And you know, I've been going to the conferences like the local New Zealand conference, and some other discussions, and the best way to make sure that your community survives these things is to have a plan already in place. And so I think we need to get in front of this for our own community's sake and not leave it all to horizons or all to the government, and certainly not leave it to the time when there is a big emergency, because it's almost too late by then. And you look at what you're hearing on the radio and the TV from people who are affected by flood, and it's the uncertainty that is really impacting on the community. So I'd rather be in front. So I'm very interested in this, and I think we probably, whilst we're short on resources, this is a big one. We know it's going to happen, right? We know we're going to get another flood. It might be 100 years, but we know. And I'd rather that we had a real plan, and it's quite a lot of work. That's my only concern.
So
But I think
you're straddling a few issues
Sorry.
there, Helen.
I am, but
no, that's all right. We'll stop you there. My reading is there is a high level of interest about this particular issue. At the same time, we need to figure out where do we get our best bangs for our buck. So I think we might just leave that conversation there and look forward to feedback from Elise and perhaps the Chief Executive about how we might best add some value to the process. At the same time, notwithstanding the concern about the plan, but I think for us locally, I think that's another matter for another day. Philippa, did you have a question?
Yes, thanks. Just a couple. One on the following up from Councillor Josh on the sale and supply of alcohol. That consultation would involve. Obviously, I think there's a Safer Whanganui alcohol and other drugs reference group, but also key people like the Chief Medical Officer at Health that are, and the Public Officer. Well, that role I haven't got it quite right, but I think it resides mid-central, but that person lives in Whanganui. But I think we really, just checking that that you would intend to have. I know we'd go the reference group, but actually going wider into Te Whataua and into the mental health in particular area, because I think a lot of those statistics, you know, that kind of, we really need
So
to
the
hear
question
from
is-
practitioners.
The question is to make sure we do a wide and comprehensive consultation pre-engagement through this review, and I'm taking it as a given that the alcohol and reference group and drug reference group and Safer Whanganui would be very embedded as part of this process. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you. And the second one is on the natural and built environment bill. I just get a bit. So reading on this is all shifting to regional planning committees. I guess, like, we've just been to a workshop that a lot was, you know, the business forum, and it may be asking David, but a lot was raised around resource and building consent, probably more building consent stuff. And I guess, am I correct in, and they talk about changes here, fast tracking consenting for certain housing and infrastructure developments. So I guess my question's a bit like, with this moving to more regional planning committees, are we getting further away from of being able to have direct conversations, I guess, with central government, or is this going to strengthen things? I mean, it's kind of the horse is bolted, but could I just get a bit of clarity on that, please?
So we are going to have a workshop on this, aren't we?
Yes, I believe we are.
So would answering that direct question, given we've got a workshop coming up, be useful? Yes or no? And if it's yes, then you can. Oh, no.
Yeah, I guess
Okay,
we're
thank
sitting in
you.
a
I'm going to
public
stop you
meeting.
there.
Public meeting.
Justin, can you just come forward and say exactly what you said, word for word? Yeah, this will test you. So in relation to the question that Philip has just asked about local input into natural and built environment and spatial planning, the answer is
it will change how we engage, or it will change how we engage, but this is something we'll talk about at the workshop because it's something that we need to plan about how we approach it.
Okay, just my quick follow-up question is just that we are in a public, it's just be, as long as that workshop, you know, filtering through to actually our community want to know, that's kind of where.
And the community will know when we have the workshop, and the answer will be given in the context of how it needs to be answered.
And to add, we always share our submissions as well. So the submission will state your council position on this and the implications for the community, and that will be shared and reported back as well.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Great conversation and great report. I love no, I should have put the recommendation first, getting carried away. All right, the strategy and, thanks Jenny. The Strategy and Policy Committee received the report, legislation and consultation update for October 2023. Jenny would like to move that. Charlotte would like to second it. And Jenny would like to make a comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate this report. It's great. It just puts together everything that's happened in recent, 6 weeks or so, in one nice place for us. So I think it's extremely helpful. So for the team and for Andrew for asking for it, I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. I think the risk with it, though, which is what I've observed today, is that there are a lot of items on here, items that have got maybe short summaries, and I think it's really not an opportunity for us to dig too deep into them. If we want more information, I think my view is that, you know, we ask for that separately because our officers don't come here necessarily with the answers to all our questions. These aren't items for discussion, they're items for information. So, and I wouldn't want to see the report pulled because, you know, it's over-discussed. So again, thank you very much, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jenny. Josh?
Thank you. I just want to use a moment to somewhat cheekily highlight another piece of legislation that the government introduced in I think it was the final sitting week from memory, which was a bill in response to the declaration of inconsistency from the Supreme Court that not allowing 16-year-olds to vote in local and central government elections was in fact inconsistent with the Bill of Rights Act. And there was a bill introduced in the final sitting week to extend the right for 16-year-olds to vote in local elections. Beginning in 2028, and I think it's important that we give this a bit of airtime purely because it was also a recommendation that came out of the final review into the future of local government. Whether or not this piece of legislation actually passes is probably heavily dependent on the outcome of next weekend's election, given that the National and ACT parties opposed the bill. But I do think it's important that we take note of this purely because it sort of cuts to democratic participation, of which we are all involved in. So just wanted to highlight that. Thank you.
Very good. All right. The recommendation up there that we receive the report. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Okay, folks, no pressure, but it's been unanimous today for the whole meeting, okay? We've got one last item, and it's the work program, so no pressure. Just hang on. Who's going to speak to this? Elise? Christy? No, Christy's not here.
It was meant to be Lance, but he's just appeared again. He tends to do that, doesn't he? No. Honestly, nothing really to say, just to present the work plan. We have added a number of new items. We've added the long-term policies there, that long-term plan policies. Robin has covered that in detail, that those are underway. Out of interest, we have added the parking bylaw and parking controls, and you'll have a workshop coming up on that. And we've added the development contributions policy as well, following the direction we had. Otherwise, I don't think there's anything in particular to note. So happy just to take the report as read, take any questions. Justin may need to come up if there's anything in your area.
No questions? All right, then we'll put the recommendation that the Strategy and Policy Committee receive the report, Strategy and Policy Committee Work Programme 2023. I will move that. Charlie will second that. Any discussion? Peter?
Yes, in defence of Lance, he's gone to give us all the URLs for the aspiration.
Very good. Thank you very much for the report, and I think you've got the general theme of excitement around and gratitude around the table for the great job that the team's doing. So thank you very much. I'll also add my thanks to you folks sitting around the table in terms of keeping your strategic lens over the papers today, and I thank you very much for your contribution and participation. We'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Unanimous. There, beat that, any of you are the chairs. Life's one long competition, Peter, come on. All right, we're going to close the meeting with the Karakia. So if you just bear with me, I'll find it. I oha ki ranga ki a Whanganui, I oha ki raro ki a papa tuanuku. Whakatairanga, te kupu, te kōrero, te mahi, ki te pō o te whare. He taonga, he mahi a muri, ka puta ki te whai au, ki te ao marama. Humie, huie, taikie.